Not your turn.
Gears Tactics knows that I could just sit behind cover, Overwatch activated, waiting for the Locust troops to stumble into my line of fire. I mean, patience is a virtue, right? Well, the problem with that saying is it doesn't really account for sawing a bad guy in half with a chainsaw gun. I'm Wes, PC Gamer, and I recently got to play a few hours of Gears Tactics, which is a lot like XCOM, but with a very Gears of War twist put on it. Even in the context of an XCOM-inspired strategy game, chainsawing bad guys in a shower of ludicrous gore is still pretty great. Gears' defining executions are really key to its new tactical combat, even though it's not a shooter anymore, and they push you to be aggressive in the face of enemy hordes. So after mortally wounding an enemy, you can get up close and execute them with a pistol smash to the head, or cut them in half with a chainsaw, and that ultra-violence really psychs up the rest of your squad, and that actually gives them an extra action point. I think it's a cool way for them to translate mechanics from the shooter series into a tactics game, and it also really fits the more aggressive nature of Gears as opposed to something like XCOM, which is obviously much more reserved.
Not your turn.
For the first hour of Gears Tactics, I mainly would pop a soldier out of cover just for an execution when it felt safe, and that extra action point felt like a nice bonus. But, you know, it's already a faster-paced strategy game than XCOM. Instead of just being able to move and take an action on your turn, you actually just get 3 action points in Gears Tactics that you can spend as you choose. So you can even have an enemy, you can even shoot an enemy 3 times with one single soldier if you want to. It'll totally let you do that. So instead of staying put and just firing 3 times, you know, a lot of times I would try to move my units around, position them a little bit, get an execution occasionally, but I quickly realized I was going to have to do it a lot more because this game throws a lot of enemies at you. I started having to deal with emergence holes where they would barf up piles of enemies, and those guys would just jump straight behind my cover and flank me. So I realized that 3 action points wasn't going to be enough. I was going to have to start chaining these executions to really stay in business. Like other great strategy mechanics, these execution chains really trigger that part of your brain that loves to optimize. It reminded me of starting every round of a game of Into the Breach thinking, like, how can I possibly get out of this? And finding that one perfect solution. So in one fight, I accidentally got one of my gears surrounded by enemies, and it took most of my actions just to thin the herd and be able to revive him. And then once he was on his feet, he was able to execute a nearby grunt, which turned out to be really clutch because I immediately got him downed again by trying to bayonet a grenadier enemy, and they have a counter move where if you get too close to him, shotgun you in the face. So without the bonus action that he granted to the rest of my squad, nobody would have been around to resurrect him a second time. It's a really clever idea that makes Gears Tactics, again, feel more like actual Gears of War than I expected.
Gonna need to commandeer this whole platoon for our little grub hunt. That won't go down easy.
Don't you worry. Been working on my recruiting pitch.
Yeah. That's what I'm afraid of.
So thankfully I never felt like I was just playing XCOM with a Gears skin. Gears Tactics does away with a lot of XCOM's high-level complexity, like the base building, the resource management stuff, all of that kind of meta campaign, to focus more on a narrative campaign and a cool equipment upgrade system. So every mission in this game is going to start with a cutscene, it's going to end with a cutscene, it has several acts, and each act culminates in a big boss fight. I think that stuff's all really cool, but it still has some of the most important pieces of XCOM, I feel, which is you can recruit, can random units, so you get to customize your squad as you see fit. And before you complete each act, there will be a series of kind of side quests you can go on to help level up some of those troops, train up some rookies if some of your higher end soldiers get killed off, that kind of thing. Your weapons can be upgraded to hold more rounds, improve their accuracy, crit damage, and so on. That's kind of your upgrade system in this game instead of the research from XCOM. And the parts for those gun upgrades that you're going to do can be found scattered around mission maps. So sometimes you'll have, some risk reward of do you want to stick your neck out to go pick up a nice upgrade. But you'll also earn them just from completing missions and from completing bonus objectives, like killing 8 enemies in one turn, for example.
Should be useful.
There are 5 classes: Support, Vanguard, Heavy, Scout, and Sniper. And they each have kind of an open-ended skill tree with 4 specialties. You'll only be able to max out about 2 of those paths for any one soldier if you manage to keep them alive to max level. So with my Scout, I was already eyeballing skills from 2 separate trees that would work well together. For example, one of them gave her a dash ability to move extra far in a straight line, while another gave me a free action point when using her cloak ability to briefly turn invisible. In the end, I really liked the balance that Gears Tactics strike. I played through most of the first act of the game, got to play a big boss fight, and overall it's not as overwhelming as XCOM 2. It lacks some of that sandbox potential. It's not a game that you're going to get lost in for hundreds of hours potentially, but instead it has cutscenes, really nice presentation, big set piece boss battles. There's no grid, so movement and that kind of stuff feels a little different. And of course, it's got chainsaw guns. So, in my opinion, that's all you need.
Threat neutralized.